Marcus being the firstborn, sometimes you do not have a lot of comparison to do because this is the first child. But I think for me, being a professional, I somehow picked it. Or is it, did I say the mother's instinct? Either, I'm not sure which one worked. But somehow, from when he was born, it did not take me long to just feel like all was not well. Something was amiss.
Being the professional that she is, I was thinking that she's over zooming the issue. So I said, no, let's take time. Let's just wait.
When you have this kind of a child, there is always that denial, my child could not be having a problem. My child could not be having any challenge. So that is what pushed us to up to 3 years. Otherwise, I feel for me like we would have done the assessment earlier and gotten the diagnosis. But there were signs leading towards there is a challenge. There was no signs of communication, intentional communication, the way you see a child striving to want to pick language and use language.
We could see that he's not able to utter many words, in fact none, and there were children around us who could say a few things who are generally his age. And then he was very hyperactive, so that it was difficult to make him slow down and do anything. That is when we started noticing that he was different.
My name is Alvin Kimani. I am 19 years old. Actually, I was born with autism. My parents said that when I reached at 1 year old, I was not able to speak. That's just like the other children.
You really don't have time to notice that something is wrong. So my mother came and stayed with me for a few days. And she told me there's a problem. Your son should be talking by now or he should have developed some few words by now. I didn't think it would be something very serious or anything. So we went, did the tests that were recommended by the doctor. And after a few days, we went back for the results and we got the autism diagnosis.
Autism is a neurodevelopmental disability. That means it affects the neurological development of the child, the way the child processes information. The core areas that form part of diagnosis are usually impairments in speech and language skills, impairments in social interaction, and then lack of flexibility of thought and behavior. So those are the core areas that we consider when you're doing assessment for autism. However, autism can exist with other conditions like hyperactivity, sensory issues, anxiety, and so many other areas that will complicate the process of diagnosis and intervention at the same time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
A big number of children with autism will delay in acquiring speech, and later on when they acquire speech they still have maybe a repetitive way of talking. Autism impairs a person's receptive and expressive language. So language is a major area that is usually affected in autism.
My name is Paul Durango. I'm 28, turning 29. I've been autistic since birth.
And even amongst people with adults with autism who speak, those ones with speech, when you engage them in conversation, you still be able to pick a few things here and there that will tell you that they are struggling either with comprehension, understanding jokes, they take language literally and the like.
How has it been living with autism?
It was difficult, especially education and employment. Education, like I can only take 2 classes or 3 instead of 4, because if I take 4, I don't do very well. I get 6.
You're the current light of autism.
Yes.
How does it feel?
I'm very happy. I help people in Madare.
And then the other area is lack of flexibility of thought and behavior, where they want things to be done in a particular way. They have a lot of repetitive behaviors. they feel really hurt when you interfere with their routine. They function quite well when there's clear structure in their way of working.
My name's Lucy Wambogo. I'm a mother to an autistic child. She's here with me. She is Tracy Bitutu. She is 14. Yeye alikuwa anajua tukiamka asubuhi ni kukula, kuoga, kuvaa na kuenda shule. Sasa tena mnaamka, mnakula, hamuendi mahali. So hiyo anakuwa frustrated. Anaanza kurusha vitu. Unajua hawezi sema mbona hatuendi. Anaanza tu hiyo kurusha vitu, kelele.
An autistic child, you cannot change their routine. A small change, even like changing their place in the dinner table, causes them severe distress. Yeah, like say you take a certain route to school every day. Today, if you take a different route, it's a problem for them. So they like repetition in their daily schedule. Or even in the foods they eat, maybe they want to eat the same thing every day. You can't change that. It may cause them a lot of distress.
And the third area of impairment is usually in social understanding. Social understanding is different from social interaction. They can interact socially, they'll have a few friends here and there, but initiating social interaction and joining in social interaction and following rules tend to be very difficult for them.
Nilimpeleka hiyo shule na hapa na nikaambiwa mtoto wako she can't fit here. Sasa ticha mwingine hapo akamwangalia akaniambia hii case sio ya hapa. She is so hyper. Enda assessment uambiwe ni nini iko na mtoto wako.
If you look at behavior, they can present with very disruptive behavior, say in school or at home. Like maybe they throw tantrums or they get very angry. They can also have self-injurious behavior, such as banging their head on the floor or on the wall. So that's autism in a nutshell.
Actually, when we finally went for confirmation, and we were given some measures like change of diet and what have you, those things, it was very good for us because we stopped now aggravating the issue through diet, because we used to give him a lot of sweet things, maybe juices, and more so milk, because apparently they are not able to digest the casein in milk. So he would cry, and in an attempt to soothe him, we give him more milk. He continues to cry, and in an attempt to soothe, we add more milk. And the crying was unending.
When I eat the food that I'm not supposed to eat, definitely happy there with the body. So it reached where a point where I'd fight people without even any reason, without I just laugh aimlessly. I laugh like a mad person, and definitely I'll just fight. I'll just do anything. So I try much to avoid the food I'm not supposed to eat.
Say hi.
Say hi.
Yeah, so he does. He's those are one of the things that we call the milestones for us. For you to be able to call him on the second and he turns, there's a time that he wasn't responsive completely. No, yeah.
If you meet a person who's autistic, don't start bullying them or telling them hey, you can't do this or that. It's not nice to the parents, and they'd feel bad because you don't know what's wrong with the person.
How I respond to them is that Some I just look at them, others I try to avoid them, others I feel like I want to fight them because they are so annoying, and some will joke with you and I don't want to joke with them. They're hard jokes.
My childhood, I would say it was like a mixture of acceptance, but in reality it wasn't the best, I would say, especially in school, where teachers wouldn't understand you. Basically, you will be bullied, even not only by the teachers, even by the students. I struggled to make friends. My name's Karen Muriuki. I am 40 years old. I am an autistic self-advocate and a founder of Kenyans Living with Autism. I'm also autistic myself. I was diagnosed autistic when I was 3.5 years old in 1985. That year, during that time, nobody knew anything about autism. It was known as mental retardation. I wouldn't use that word. It's not the safest word to use.
But now we are lucky that at least our hospitals, government hospitals, do the diagnosis, And that is the first step, that if you suspect anything is wrong with your child, autistic or any other thing, if you notice that they're not hitting the milestones, that's the first thing you should do. Take your child, get tested. Don't be afraid of the stigma.
Intervention is affected highly. An early intervention to help the symptoms improve can be affected by cultural norms and cultural beliefs, because mental health is not accepted yet as much as it should be. There is some kind of acceptance, but there's still a lot of stigma.
As soon as the diagnosis went out, now it was what next? Thanks God, because after some time, we were able to get a school that was a new school, had just been started by a friend of ours, one Dr. Onala.
A specialist in early intervention. So I do psychoeducational assessment, and I develop learning and developmental programs for schools, interventions at home, and therapy centers. So most of the time I do psychoeducation assessment. That involves evaluating the child's learning skills, developmental level, and all the dynamics that are related to development and learning. And then I develop a program that will help teachers, therapists, and parents be able to intervene for children with developmental and learning conditions. So the parent needs to be taken through the process slowly. In that case, I would refer the parent for counseling, or I would introduce that parent to another parent who already has a child who has been diagnosed and been found with autism, so that they can talk. And the other parent will help this other parent to go through the process.
People need to be more sensitized about it, because the cases are on the rise. The first time I heard of autism with my son, I thought that he's the only one. But with time, I later came to be added into a WhatsApp group that had 255 parents with the same case. And actually we had to create another group with another 255. And that tells you that considering that they are not very far from where I am, then there are so many others.
By the way, autism cuts across all the levels of intelligence. We have people with autism who are very, very intelligent with very high IQs. We talk of high functioning autism. We have those ones with average intelligence, those with low average intelligence, and those ones who are struggling with levels of intelligence. So autism cuts across that.
Okay, my name is Sarah Busibori. I'm an autistic advocate. I'm autistic myself, and I am 26 years of age. Been living with it ever since I was a child. My signs showed mainly in school, academics, where I had low grades. I didn't know how to read or write. I was very hyperactive as a child as well.
For me, it didn't stick into my head that I was so different. But I knew I was different somehow, yeah. But recently, just the age of 20, 25, when I was in college actually, pursuing my degree, but I dropped out because I didn't know what was happening. Then I went through depression. So after that, I wanted to, to seek help. And then that help apparently or fortunately landed me into my purpose of advocating. I think the most important thing for me is that is educating people. Educating people about the fact that you're autistic by them listening to you, your lived experience. It's all about just making that person aware, okay, I'm autistic. Try and understand that I may be very different from you. I don't have to conform to your social norms. Doing that is very problematic, and when you talk about mental health among autistic people, it is like we're the most people who have been struggling a lot with mental health. Another during the month of being Mental Health Awareness Month. Awareness and education centering about autism and other intellectual disabilities, it's so important that it is led by autistic people. Sometimes I write on my social media account, and I have a page that's called Uniqueness with Autism. That's where I express all my experiences with autism to help parents understand that their child, even though they're nonverbal or they haven't gotten to that point where they can interact with you guys, the way I'm interacting with you, there is always hope that in the future they will be like me or better. Yeah.